Hey crafty friends, it's Joy here for Honeybee Stamps, and today I created 2 cards using the new Winter Song Stamp and Die and the Frosted Filigree 3D embossing folder. So here is that gorgeous stamp and die. We're going to be doing some heat embossing. There is coordinating dies, and then here is that 3D embossing folder. I think it's so pretty, and we're just going to create some beautiful colored images with Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. So it's like watercolor markers. So I have watercolor paper in my MISTI here, and we're going to use black cardstock for our background. So a little something different than I normally do. You don't have to do gold embossing. You could just do black ink, and that works out just fine. But I love gold embossing. You could also do black ink and clear embossing. And the reason why I like it is because it will kind of hold in your watercolors when you're watercoloring. So this has a lot of detail to it. It's a red rubber stamp, which you get beautiful detail with. And so if you're not for the gold look, you could do the black ink and then do clear embossing powder over it. Okay, so I'm going to sprinkle off my embossing powder here. This is gold embossing powder. You can see it revealing those gorgeous images. And then I'm going to use my heat tool to heat this until it is nice and shiny and melted. We're going to color these images and then use the coordinating dies to die cut them out. And then we will place those onto our backgrounds, which we will create here in just a little bit. But look at how pretty. I love these birds. I think it's so beautiful. So I'm going to use reds and greens. I do bring in a pink. I have like 3 different greens, although 2 of them look very similar. I'm going to do a cardinal and then a bluebird on this. I have a little bit of water on my mat here, and I'm using a watercolor paintbrush, and I am just dipping it in some water and tapping the excess off onto a dry rag because I don't want too much water. That's just me personally. You don't even have to use water. You could use 2 different colors and just blend these together, but I like to blend it out with water. It gives you a dark shadow area and a light highlight area. Over these greenery pieces down here, like the pine needle pieces, there's not really a place to color, so I just kind of flicked, because these are very fine tip, I just kind of flicked the color throughout, and it would grab the paper in some places to give that a little bit of green. But you don't have to do that because we did emboss it in gold. They could be all gold, and that's fine. I'm coloring the red berries. I have this tilted up a little bit towards myself because with all of my studio lights, the gold embossing was kind of shining in a way that I couldn't like see great where I needed to color on those smaller areas. Isn't that so funny? So I kind of had to have it tilted up just a little bit to give me that. Sorry, I need to change my lights a little bit here. And so, yeah, I had to look at it that way. That's just so funny to me. I'm like, yeah, I can't really see great. So I'm going to blend that out just a little bit. We are going to add a little bit more water to the work surface, and then let's color our beautiful cardinal. Okay, so let's get our red down. And I do want to say the Winter Song stamp set has tons of sentiments in it as well, along with these 2 images, and there is coordinating dies for all the sentiments and of course the large images here. Okay, so I've got that blended out. You make sure I get all of his feathers colored, and he's got feathers hanging down below, so I'm going to get those blended out. And you will have ink that sits on top of your embossing powder. You can just dry off your brush really quick and just kind of sop up the ink with your drier paintbrush. It doesn't have to be completely dry to do it. Okay, then we've got our beautiful bluebird here. This is such easy coloring. Again, especially because with the embossing powder, whatever color you use, it just kind of corrals the ink in there, which is nice. That doesn't mean that I didn't color outside the lines a couple times, because I did. So just clean off your brush if you do. Get it clean, get a little bit of clear, clean water, and just swipe across the area that you colored outside the lines with, and it will clean it up nicely. Okay, so here, so sorry, excuse me. I've been getting over this cold. Here is the second image. This has just a lot of greenery and flowers. It's so pretty. So I'm going to make some red flowers over here. We have one big red poinsettia in the center. And when you're using just one color, you really can change the intensity of it by more or less of the ink and more or less of the water. So I'm using the same red marker for those flowers on the right as the one that I'm doing here in the center. I just was heavier with the one here in the center, so it looks like two different colors of red, but it's just one. Then we have all of our greenery. I kind of used a soft green, some darker greens, just to give a little bit of, you know, extra something. So you have multiple different greens. It looks really, really pretty. I will say the really light green that I used kind of blended into the gold in a way, which I didn't hate, but it didn't stand out a ton. So maybe next time I would have chose a different green than that. I still think it was really pretty and I still really liked it. So that's this green right here, kind of a yellow green. And then we've got a darker green on these leaves over here. And I am using watercolor paper. I'm actually using the more smooth side, not the more textured side. I think I'm using Tim Holtz watercolor paper. Normally I use Bristol Smooth, but I am out of that. Okay, I have two A2 size pieces of black cardstock, and I'm going to put that in my Frosted Filigree 3D embossing folder and run that through my die cut machine. I was just lining it up so that way that opening really is in the center and making sure that everything's kind of straight and not crooked. And then we're going to be using Honeybee Stamp's Brilliant White ink, and I'm going to gently rub that across all of the raised areas. I did want this to feel a bit snowy, but you could also leave it as is, and that would also be really beautiful. So here is that ink pad. I'm just going to lightly go across. I do get some on the background. It did not bother me, but I did want to catch the raised areas of their snowflakes and just kind of swirlies. It just feels very wintry and snowy. Then I'm going to use a white luster marker, and I'm going to squeeze a little bit of that out onto my work surface. You could use distress paint, you could use acrylic paint with a little bit of water, and I'm going to splatter pretty heavily on my backgrounds to give it more of that snowy look. And so I'm just grabbing some of that with my brush that's on my work surface and then just splattering. And I do like some of those bigger splatters for sure. Okay, in my Misty, I have these sentiments. I actually stamped more than once the We Wish You A, but I only needed it once. And then there's Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. So I'm going to use gold embossing powder on my paper. I prepped it with my anti-static powder tool, and I'm going to heat that with my heat tool and use the coordinating dies to die cut these out. I already used the coordinating dies for those large images. I just did not show in the video. And once the heat embossing has cooled down, you can lightly buff your background cardstock with a dry cloth or paper towel just to get all of that powder off. Let me get these taped in place. And then I can run that through my die cut machine. Let's add 1mm foam adhesive behind our centerpieces, although now I was wishing I would have done 2mm, not the end of the world, but look at how those just stand out against that black Christmassy background. Kind of different. Like I said, I don't normally do it like this. I've seen some cards that have these black backgrounds for Christmas, and I thought, I kind of like it. Let me try it. So I did. I don't think this is necessarily for everybody, but it's different, and sometimes you need a little bit of different. I have 2mm foam adhesive behind my sentiments here, and both of these cards will be on an A2 size card base, which measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Let me get this guy in place and we can take a look at these up close. Oh, no, wait, let me put my gems on first. I actually grabbed the Homestead Hues gem stickers. That was from the last release, but there is gem stickers from this new Christmas release. So I'm going to put a few of those around. It's nice and sparkly. Has a little bit of red to it. I think it looks really pretty on this background. Okay, now let's take a look. Look at that gold embossing powder. These images are so pretty. And that fun embossed background highlighted with that white pigment ink from Honeybee Stamps. I think these turned out really, really pretty. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope you feel inspired by these two projects. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you like what you've seen, please subscribe to their channel, and I hope you have a great day.